Hey everyone! Today we are going to deep dive into one of the most bone-chilling cases you will ever hear. This story left investigators speechless and will haunt your nightmares. What happened behind closed doors was so shocking that seasoned detectives couldn't believe their eyes. Prepare yourselves, because nothing can ready you for the absolute horror we're about to uncover. Let's dive into it. The summer night air hung heavy with doom as 16-year-old Susana Morales walked alone on that fateful evening of July 26, 2022. The suburban streets outside Atlanta, normally a sanctuary of safety, would become the stage for a chilling mystery that would torment a family and baffle investigators for months. She was right there, her mother would later sob to investigators, pointing frantically at the Life 360 app that tracked her daughter's movements. She was coming home. Everything was fine. Then she just disappeared into thin air. The digital breadcrumbs told a terrifying tale. One moment, Susana was walking steadily toward home, just steps from safety. The next, her digital signal accelerated to 40 miles per hour. A teenage girl suddenly moving at vehicle speed without explanation, without warning, without consent. A single, haunting text message arrived at her mother's phone. "I'm on my way home." Those 5 words would be the last her family would hear from her. She never arrived. In the shadowy night that followed, panic erupted. The Life 360 app that was meant to keep her safe instead delivered a stomach-churning crash alert to a friend. Then silence. Her phone died at that mysterious location and would never be recovered, as if swallowed by the darkness itself. "It doesn't make sense," whispered her brother, eyes hollow with fear. She didn't drive. She didn't have access to any car. Nobody was supposed to pick her up. The community mobilized in desperation. Search parties combed through neighborhoods, voices growing hoarse from calling her name into empty woods. Police established tip lines. Distraught family members plastered every telephone pole and storefront with her smiling face, a face now haunting the community's collective conscience. Then, a glimmer of hope pierced through the darkness. "It's her. Oh my God, it's her!" cried a family member, pointing at grainy security footage discovered at a nearby community center. The video, timestamped 6 p.m. on that fateful day, showed Susana walking alone, appearing unharmed. It was the last confirmed sighting of the teenager, a ghostly imprint captured forever on digital memory. "We know she left home and walked to Sterling Glen Apartments," explained the stone-faced detective leading the case. At approximately 10 p.m., she began her journey home. Then, his voice trailed off. She vanished. Completely. Law enforcement unleashed everything in their arsenal. Undercover operations probed the sinister world of sex trafficking. Drones equipped with thermal imaging hovered over dense woods, searching for any trace of the missing girl. Officers analyzed countless traffic cameras, though finding a specific vehicle without knowing what to look for was, as one officer grimly put it, like searching for a needle in a stack of needles. For the family, each passing day carved new wounds into their hearts. Hope flickered like a dying candle as reported sightings flooded in from across the nation. Detroit, Nashville, Gatlinburg, all across Georgia. Each tip initially kindled hope, only to have it cruelly extinguished when it led nowhere. "This is not just about finding a missing girl," the police chief told the press, his eyes reflecting the toll of sleepless nights. "This is about bringing closure to a family trapped in an unimaginable nightmare." The investigation slammed against wall after wall. No witness, no motive, no body, just the terrifying reality that a teenage girl had been there one moment, captured on video, tracked by GPS, and gone the next, snatched away by forces unknown. For 6 long, torturous months, Susana's bedroom remained untouched, a shrine to the girl who vanished into the night. Her family lived suspended between hope and despair, between prayer and nightmare, waiting for answers that seemed destined never to come. What truly happened to Susana Morales on that warm July night? What dark fate befell a girl who was just steps from home? And who was responsible for turning an ordinary evening into an enduring mystery that would haunt a community for months to come? The bitter winds of February 2023 carried with them the answers a heartbroken community had been dreading. 6 agonizing months after Susanna's disappearance, all hope shattered like fragile glass against cold reality. "I found something terrible," stammered the trembling voice of an off-roader who had ventured into the remote wilderness near Drowning Creek Road on February 6th. His evening adventure had turned into a nightmare when he stumbled upon human remains, skeletal and exposed, lying miles from where Susanna was last seen alive. Detectives' faces turned ashen as they surveyed the macabre scene. "There was nothing left," one investigator whispered. "No clothing fibers, no flesh, nothing but bones disturbed by animal activity." The grim discovery spoke volumes about the haste and panic of whoever had left her there, close enough to civilization to suggest urgency, yet hidden enough to delay discovery for half a year. The skeletal remains told a chilling story that words could never fully capture. Scientific confirmation soon delivered the news that a family had been both dreading and desperately needing. The remains belonged to Susanna Morales. "It is the worst possible thing to not have closure," her mother had said during those months of uncertainty. "I think my daughter may be alive. I hope my daughter is alive. But I don't know." Now that torturous limbo had ended, replaced by a grief so profound it defied description. Susanna, the vibrant teenager who filled her home with ukulele music and spent hours perfecting makeup tutorials in her room. The baby of the family whom everyone adored, the kind and friendly girl with the infectious laugh, had been reduced to bones in an unceremonious grave. What had been a missing persons case instantly transformed into a homicide investigation. Detectives who had exhausted every lead now faced their darkest suspicion confirmed. Susanna hadn't run away. She had been taken. They investigated every single person in her life, noted one case observer, and could not find a single thing that pointed to anyone. With all known connections eliminated, only one terrifying theory remained. A stranger had snatched her from the street as she walked home that summer night. As investigators combed the scene for evidence that might identify her killer, the community grieved for the promising life so cruelly extinguished. The mystery of what happened during Susanna's final moments now haunted everyone, like a shadow that refuses to lift even in the harsh light of truth. In the frozen woods where Susanna's remains lay scattered, destiny delivered another chilling revelation, one that would send shockwaves through the community and shake the very foundation of trust in law enforcement. Just 100 feet from where her bones rested among fallen leaves and forest debris, an eagle-eyed officer made a discovery that electrified the stagnant investigation. "We located a firearm," announced the lead detective, his voice tight with the weight of this breakthrough. "A Glock 19 pistol, abandoned on the ground. Not buried, not hidden, just dropped as if in haste. This wasn't just any weapon. This particular Glock had been reported stolen on July 27th, a date that sent ice through investigators' veins. It was the exact same day Susanna Morales had been reported missing. It creates more questions than answers," muttered a veteran officer as the weapon was carefully bagged for evidence. The statistical probability that a firearm would be found so close to human remains by pure coincidence stretched the bounds of belief. This had to be connected, but how? The medical examiner's findings only deepened the mystery. Despite meticulous examination of the recovered skeleton, approximately 95% of Susanna's remains had been found. There were no obvious bullet holes in the bones, no knife marks, nothing to indicate a clear cause of death. Several smaller bones were missing, carried off by scavengers or lost to the elements, taking with them any hope of determining exactly how this vibrant young life had been extinguished. "We had a really difficult time trying to figure out what happened to Susanna," confessed the coroner, frustrated by the silence of bones that could not speak of their trauma. But the abandoned Glock whispered its own dark tale. When investigators ran the serial number, what they discovered turned their investigation upside down and sent shockwaves through the law enforcement community. "The gun has been reported stolen," confirmed a detective. "Who was the owner?" "Oh, it's Miles Bryant." The room fell silent before the bombshell dropped. "Wait a minute. He is a sworn police officer. Miles Bryant, 22 years old, an active duty officer with the Doraville Police Department, had reported his weapon stolen the very day after Susanna vanished. His police report played back like damning testimony.
Yesterday, I don't know what time, man. I went running around here. I did a bunch of stuff yesterday. And I came back, I went to the store and everything. I had it at the store, and I came back, I can't find my wallet. And then this morning, I looked on my floorboard, and the my Glock 19 holster is on the floorboard. Oh, I hate to say it, I think I left they ain't smashed the window or nothing. I left my door unlocked, so that's definitely missing. I get kids going to the pool all the time when it's closed.
Oh yeah.
That cut back there leads to like behind that little grocery store right there.
Oh yeah, we've had people actually rob the grocery store and come run through here.
His casual explanation continued, riddled with red flags to the now suspicious investigators. I think I left my door unlocked. No smashed window or nothing. The coincidence was too glaring to ignore. Finding the gun immediately connected Bryant to the case. Whether as victim or perpetrator remained to be seen, but his name was now inextricably linked to the tragedy. When investigators tracked Bryant to his apartment, the threads of fate tightened into a noose of suspicion. Bryant lived at Sterling Glen Apartments, the very complex Susanna had visited the night she disappeared, the place from which she had begun her fatal journey home. He was a courtesy officer, explained the lead detective, referring to Bryant's role as a security presence at the complex in exchange for reduced rent. He was likely very familiar with the regular happenings there and the folks who lived there. When questioned about Susanna, Bryant's responses raised immediate concerns.
When she first was missing, I was talking to the neighborhood kids, stuff like that. They didn't really know anything.
What are the neighborhood kids saying?
I haven't talked to them in a minute, but when she first was missing, it was like it was just with her. I haven't heard anything, actually. Like, me and my girl was talking about it, stuff like that. It was like, it's just weird. They said she was walking home, and she just, you know.
When she first went missing, I was talking to the neighborhood kids and stuff like that, he claimed, his manner oddly detached for a police officer discussing a missing teen. It was weird. They said she was walking home, and she just, you know. His voice trailed off, leaving the most crucial detail, what happened to Susanna, hanging ominously in the air. Investigators brought Bryant to police headquarters, where his statements grew increasingly suspicious under scrutiny. Before the lead detective even arrived, Bryant volunteered information about his employment. I work for Doraville Police Department, he offered, before clarifying his residence. I've been living at Sterling Glen maybe a year. The pieces were falling into horrifying place. Susanna had been a frequent visitor to the apartment complex where Bryant lived and worked. Her half-mile walk home, a route she had taken many times before, had somehow intersected with this young officer's life with devastating consequences. As Bryant sat in the interrogation room, the ghost of Susanna Morales seemed to hover over the proceedings. A 16-year-old girl who had crossed paths with a man sworn to protect and serve, only to end up as bones in the woods, with his gun lying nearby like a silent witness to unspeakable acts. The case that had begun as every parent's nightmare, a child vanishing while walking home, now twisted into something perhaps even more terrifying. The possibility that the monster who took her wore a badge. The sterile interrogation room hummed with tension as Miles Bryant shifted uncomfortably in his chair. His nervous energy permeated the air while detectives circled their prey, slowly tightening their psychological grip. Each question was a carefully laid trap, each response scrutinized for the telltale signs of deception.
You said earlier that like some of the neighborhood kids or like the other teenagers like talk to you about it.
They always at the pool. I remember that day, man. It was like, hey, you heard about that Mr. Girl? But nothing referenced the incident.
Do you remember anything, like any context to what they were saying about how she went missing? Or like, did they have any speculations?
No, they didn't have any of that. They did like a walk and look for her. Or I remember that. They did what they said they was looking for and they didn't see anything.
Do you know when she went missing?
I know it was July sometime. Okay. I don't know exact dates. So I'm a little nervous.
The irony hung thick in the room. A police officer, supposedly trained to handle high-pressure situations, dissolving into jitters under questioning from his own professional brethren. The detectives exchanged meaningful glances. This wasn't standard nervousness. This was the fluttering panic of a man with dark secrets. Playing to his self-proclaimed role as the complex's security guardian, they asked if he knew of any suspicious characters they should investigate. A standard question that offered Bryant a perfect opportunity to divert attention elsewhere. He seized it desperately.
Are there any like suspicious people that are commonly going through? Because I know we got a couple of apartment complexes that have like the same homeless dude walk around, hang around. You got anybody weird like that?
Yeah. So I don't know if he's been there. I mean, I haven't seen him, but it's a couple. Him and his girlfriend used to live on a property, but he's a gangbanger. He caused a lot of issues on the property, like drug deals, just on private property. Apparently, I think he's Crip. That's from what I heard.
Do you know his name or anything?
Oh God, I don't know his name.
The detectives recognized the classic deflection tactic, throwing vague accusations at nameless gangbangers and rough people, casting a wide net of suspicion away from himself. Yet his knowledge of the specifics of the case remained suspiciously limited for someone who claimed to be so engaged with the community's security. He was a gung-ho courtesy officer, as he self-described, noted one investigator later, but seemed to have very little knowledge about a missing child from his community. The red flags multiplied. The detectives sensed they were dealing with someone who knew far more than he was telling. Someone playing a dangerous game of deception with trained professionals. Then came the tactical masterpiece that would crack the facade. In a casual tone masking its lethal intent, a detective dropped the bombshell. "I actually saw the next day like someone broke into your car." The statement hung in the air, seemingly innocuous, until the devastating follow-up. "We're thinking it's probably going to be related because it was kind of the same night. Like, the person who probably did that to you may know something." The psychological trap was expertly set. By suggesting they believed someone else had stolen Bryant's gun, the same gun found near Susanna's remains, they offered him a temporary lifeline. An innocent man would grasp at this theory, relieved to be excluded from suspicion. Bryant's response betrayed him.
"I actually saw the next day like someone broke into your car."
Yeah.
We're thinking it's probably going to be related because it was kind of the same night. Like the person who probably did that to you may know something.
I looked everywhere. I looked in the house. My girlfriend was making jokes nonstop, saying somebody took their gun. How somebody took their gun.
Do you know if it was located or anything yet?
No, I haven't heard anything.
I haven't run it yet. I want to check that really quick to see if it was found.
His nervous laughter echoed hollowly against the interrogation room walls. The detectives maintained their poker faces while inwardly celebrating the damning response. They pressed further, watching their suspect squirm. "Do you know if it was located or anything yet?" "No," Bryant replied, sweat beading on his forehead. Unaware he was confessing his own ignorance of critical information only the killer would know. As viewers watching true crime shows, we often wonder why police withhold certain details from the public. This case illustrates the brutal effectiveness of that strategy. Bryant had no idea that investigators had already found his gun near Susanna's remains, a fact deliberately kept from media reports. Armed with information the suspect didn't know they possessed, detectives watched him fabricate explanations and alibis that contradicted physical evidence, each lie another nail in his coffin. The gun that Bryant had reported stolen the day after Susanna's disappearance now lay in the evidence room, potentially linking him directly to her death. In that sterile room with its unforgiving fluorescent lighting, with cameras recording every twitch and hesitation, the facade of Officer Miles Bryant, sworn protector, courtesy officer, upstanding community member, began to crumble under the weight of his own contradictions. Behind his badge had lurked something monstrous. The interrogation room became the crucible where truth and lies collided, where a predator posing as protector was gradually exposed through the relentless psychological warfare waged by detectives determined to deliver justice for a 16-year-old girl whose bones lay scattered in the woods. The hunters had become the hunted, and Miles Bryant was running out of places to hide. The atmosphere in the interrogation room shifted dramatically as the detectives unleashed their devastating revelation, a truth bomb designed to shatter Bryant's carefully constructed facade.
We did find your gun, actually. Yeah, so that just like raises suspicion even more. Not with you, but like I think it's the same person. You watch the news, you know we found Savannah, but there was actually a gun found out there too.
For real?
Yeah, and it's the same serial number. He just verified it.
It's crazy.
I know.
Bryant sat frozen, his mind visibly racing behind panicked eyes. This was the pivotal moment when his carefully constructed narrative began to collapse around him, when he realized the investigators knew far more than he'd anticipated. The weapon he'd reported stolen after Susanna's disappearance had materialized in the worst possible location, near her remains. The detectives pressed harder, focusing on the critical night of July 26, 2022, the night Susanna vanished forever.
I need you to think really hard though with me. I'm dependent on you right now. Look, I want to be like doorbell police officer, help us solve the Susanna Morales case. Think of anybody that was out there that night, because I know you were out there patrolling that night. Think of anything.
That's all I can really think of. Me and my girlfriend was actually arguing that night. So I think I just was driving around.
What were y'all arguing about?
I got caught up with my side piece.
When asked what the argument was about, he mumbled something about getting caught up with my side people, an admission of infidelity that paled in comparison to the crime they suspected him of committing. The interrogation technique was masterful. The detectives had established rapport, creating a false sense of camaraderie before systematically dismantling his comfort zone. They noted every nervous tick, every contradiction, every moment his story shifted under questioning.
Did you work that night?
That night?
Were you off that night?
I don't know. Whatever day that I was arguing with my girlfriend, stuff like that, I wasn't working.
When you just ride around, is it common for you to leave Norcross? I mean, I would think you would just drive around.
Yeah, I live right around. I would go to I go to Atlanta, everywhere. I remember a little bit that night. Yeah, before that, man, I was with my girlfriend, actually. That night, I was riding around. I don't know what night it is, if this night particularly.
It's the night before you made the report with us. That should be memorable.
Yeah, I was trying to think about it now. God, I remember that part. She tried to chase me. My girlfriend tried to chase me with her car.
Like the Jerry Springer episode.
I don't know if this will help, but she chased me into an apartment complex.
The detectives exchanged knowing glances. Bryant was throwing anything he could into the narrative, hoping some dramatic distraction would stick. They circled back to the same questions repeatedly, watching his story evolve with each telling, a telltale sign of fabrication rather than recollection. When asked about Susanna's residence, Bryant's answer betrayed his suspicious knowledge.
Susanna didn't live in your complex, but do you know kind of where she lived?
From what I've seen, she lived nearby.
Like where?
I have no clue. They said she was walking home, and I don't know. They said she lived nearby, so I guess it'd be in the area. I don't think she lived in that apartment complex though. But I remember driving around that night, getting chased by my girlfriend. She blocking my car right now, almost hitting her car.
This was after y'all went out somewhere?
No, this is while I guess got me doing patrols on video or something like that. Yeah.
The noose tightened further as detectives asked the most damning question of all: why his gun would be at the scene of Susanna's remains.
Did you ever go out there do you know where she was found?
316 somewhere.
Yeah, do you ever go in the woods and stuff out there?
In the woods, no.
Is there any reason why you would have dropped it out there maybe?
No.
Do y'all do any training out there or anything?
Not over there at least.
Okay. So, I'm just curious, that's so crazy.
That's crazy, yeah.
His credibility evaporating with each denial contradicted by physical evidence. As Bryant floundered in a web of conflicting statements, Detective Carter made a crucial decision, examining Bryant's phone records just to exclude him as a suspect. It was a classic investigative tactic, seemingly offering Bryant a path to exoneration while actually gathering potentially damning evidence. The records from Bryant's two phones, his personal device and his official police department phone, would soon provide critical data, allowing investigators to triangulate his movements on that fateful night. The digital breadcrumbs of his cellular activity would either clear his name or cement his guilt.
You didn't go over where her body was found that night, right? To like in the woods or anything? Okay. All right.
I don't know where her body was found.
Off 316.
No, I just drove around.
You didn't go in the woodline contemplating life or anything, did you? I'm just joking with you. I'm making jokes. That's a creepy ass place to walk to.
I drove everywhere. I'm not sure where I drove.
Y'all just played Chase the Boo until y'all went home?
No.
Who went home first?
I don't know, but I know I lost her and I just drove around. Where did I drive to? I went toward... God, this sounds bad. It sounds terrible. Because I remember getting on the exit going that way trying to lose her. I remember going up 85. Oh, man, that sounds bad. It is over about 316.
What Bryant didn't know, what he couldn't have anticipated, was that his own phone had betrayed him with ruthless digital precision. In the crucial hours between 1 o'clock and 2 a.m. on July 27th, just hours after Susanna vanished, his phone had pinged cell towers in Decola, Georgia, along Highway 316. Not just anywhere along Highway 316, but precisely in the wooded area where Susanna's remains would later be discovered. When confronted with this damning technological evidence, Bryant's facade finally cracked.
I'm be honest, I'm police officer, okay? So
Yeah.
my gun was found in that area, technically was in that area, stuff like that, So,
I mean,
it sounds bad, but
I don't think you got anything to hide. I think you're a good person. I mean, you're a police officer. Nobody wants to be a police officer that's...
I mean, you're a police officer, but the trap had fully closed. The discrepancies between Bryant's evolving stories and the cold, hard evidence had become too glaring to ignore.
Listen to me. Your device was the only one out there. She went missing. She died there. Your gun is there. Your phone is there. Okay? This is your moment to talk about it.
God, so bad.
This is terrible.
Maybe you were a monster.
Oh, hell no.
Prove it wrong. I don't believe you. Right now, that's the only thing I'm thinking of. And that's what everyone else is going to think too.
Attempting to penetrate Bryant's sociopathic shield, they showed him a photo of Susanna.
She was a baby. Look at her. Little baby.
Yeah.
I'm sure this is a big weight
Look at
down on
her.
you.
Look at her.
Have nothing to do with this, so.
I know, but she's tiny. She's a little baby.
Yeah, I know.
With all pretense abandoned, the interrogation reached its climax.
It's not a question about if it's you or not, because we already know that.
No.
But listen, it's a question about what happened, okay? It's a question about if you are a cold-blooded killer or if you made a mistake.
No, you're involved.
No, we're not involved. No, I would not do that and say, well, maybe I messed up. No, none of that. Not involved.
As one investigator later noted, if he was smart, and he obviously wasn't, he would have KDBMS, kept his damn big mouth shut. Instead, his story unraveled, and it unraveled rather quickly. The detectives probed deeper into his psyche.
Do you black out sometimes when you get angry?
No, not really.
You said not really. What does that mean?
No, I don't black out where I can't remember what I do, stuff like that. If I killed somebody, I would know that.
Did you kill her?
No,
Were you with her when she died?
no.
Why did you dump her body there?
I didn't dump her body there.
Were you trying to help her and she was already dead when you found her?
No. I wasn't nowhere in the woods. Like, I would not lie about that.
But you are.
I'm not.
You are.
As the investigation deepened, a disturbing pattern emerged. Bryant had allegedly tried to break into another woman's apartment in the same area. You also tried to get into a girl's apartment off Annistown, accused a detective. Didn't do that, Bryant insisted. You didn't? Oh, your phone was just casually there too. The final piece of the puzzle fell into place as investigators discovered Bryant's history as a predator dating back to 2018. He had allegedly burglarized homes belonging to his female high school classmates, a pattern of predatory behavior that had only escalated over time. Even after Susanna's murder, security cameras had captured him in National Guard fatigues, attempting to break open a young woman's apartment door. The behavior of a serial predator who had graduated from burglary to something far more sinister on that July night when Susanna Morales disappeared forever.
Why was you hiding your head?
It was raining.
Oh, it was raining because you didn't want anyone to see your hat because it has your name on the back of your head.
She knew exactly where I was. She knew where I was.
She didn't want you there.
She didn't ever tell me that.
You're just a victim in all this. You just casually be in all these victim situations where you're just casually in the wrong place at the wrong time.
As investigators dug deeper into Bryant's digital life, a disturbing portrait emerged of a predator hiding behind a badge. His phone revealed messages he'd sent from women's devices to himself, evidence of breaking and entering, and stolen female undergarments, all building blocks in a pattern of escalating depravity that culminated in Susanna's death. Initially charged only with concealing a death and filing a false police report about his stolen gun, Bryant was held without bond while prosecutors meticulously built their murder case. They needed to be thorough, Accusing a police officer of kidnapping and murdering a stranger for sexual gratification would require overwhelming evidence to convince a jury. "We had a big obligation," explained the lead prosecutor, "to put together a case that a jury would believe and understand, to show who Miles Bryant really was, not the awards and uniforms and military service and police badge, but who he was underneath." Through painstaking analysis of cell phone records, witness interviews, and circumstantial evidence, the charges against Bryant were upgraded to include kidnapping, malice murder, felony murder, and criminal attempt to commit rape for the abduction and death of Susana Morales. The question loomed large. Without direct evidence tying Bryant to Susana's murder, was there enough to convince a jury beyond reasonable doubt? The defendant doesn't get to escape justice because he's good at covering his tracks, argued the prosecution. Maybe could have grave suspicion is not beyond a reasonable doubt. On June 5, 2024, almost 2 years after 16-year-old Susana disappeared, Miles Bryant stood trial for her murder. He was supposed to serve and protect, the prosecutor told jurors in opening statements. "He is one of the people that we should trust to enforce the law, somebody we should hold to a higher standard. But he didn't do any of those things. Instead, he abused the law, and he used his badge and his position to satisfy his own sexual desires." The courtroom fell silent as Susana's mother took the witness stand, her grief still raw and palpable nearly 2 years later.
From the time that Susana was taken, how long was it until you heard anything about finding her body?
Casi 7 meses.
Almost 7 months.
What went through your mind at that moment when you heard?
No quería eso. Yo no quería esa noticia.
I did not want that news.
Yo la esperaba.
I was waiting for her.
Y la sigo esperando.
And I'm still waiting for her.
Susana's sister testified next, describing the agonizing months spent searching for her sibling.
Did you ever stop going out and looking for your sister? What went through your mind when you found out about the police finding her body?
A lot of things. I couldn't believe it. I didn't want it to be true. I wanted to see her. I wanted proof that it was actually her. I didn't want to believe that it was her because up to that point we were still expecting for her to come home.
Even hardened law enforcement officers broke down on the stand. One detective's voice trembled as he described his obsessive commitment to finding Susana.
Jasmine called me on a daily basis. I wanted her to call me at any time. It was 2 o'clock in the morning. It didn't matter. I actually neglected my family because I made sure that I went hunting for her. And it meant a lot to me. So.
The most damning testimony came from Susana's friend, revealing that Bryant had lied about never encountering Susana before.
At the time that Susana was missing, when Missing was killed, y'all had been friends for about 5 years?
Yes, sir.
When was the last time that you saw Susana in person before she was taken?
Maybe 2 days prior.
Had you ever met Miles Bryant, the defendant?
I didn't know who he was at the time, but I have met him before. I would see him around the apartments every once in a while.
Did you ever have any kind of conversation?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
There was an instance where me and Susana were walking in the Sterling Glen apartments. He had stopped in a black truck asking us if we needed a ride. We just kind of laughed it off and didn't talk about it.
This bombshell contradicted Bryant's claim that he'd never even laid eyes on Susana, an outright lie that prosecutors called very significant. Yet the defense noted they'd never uncovered a single piece of evidence connecting Bryant and Susana through texts, social media, or any other traceable communication. The defense attorney rose, unfazed by the emotional testimony.
You don't have to lie to my client. And in fact, at the conclusion of this trial, you're going to think that he is the most callous, uncaring coward that you have ever seen. However, he is not guilty. What you have from the state is speculation. We found this, and we don't really know, but this is what we think happened. So let's just make him look really, really bad, and maybe you'll hate him enough that you will convict.
As the trial reached its climax, even Bryant's own defense team made stunning admissions that would seal his fate.
The only things we know for certain, she was in the truck. Now we do know that he lied in his statement. He said he wasn't in the woods. We do know that Miles left her in the woods. We don't know if she was unconscious at that time or if she was dead. We don't know that he did anything to her to cause that.
Though initially planning to have Bryant testify in his own defense, they abruptly changed course, perhaps realizing the risk of subjecting their client to cross-examination. Their strategy pivoted to attacking Susanna instead, suggesting alternative theories of death without offering evidence to support them. We know that Susanna was at least at a minimum experimenting with drugs outside of pot, they argued desperately. Did she overdose? This character assassination attempt, painting Susanna as a troubled youth with a drug problem who was a runaway and maybe into risky behavior, failed to gain traction. Evidence showed she had tried meth once and documented in her journal how it made her feel horrible, and that she was upset and disgusted with herself and would never do it again. Her friends testified that while they had smoked marijuana that night, it was a common practice, and this night was no different. With no physical evidence directly linking Bryant to Susanna's death, they ultimately did not find any DNA on her or him that linked the two of them. The defense hammered their final argument. Without a cause of death, we can't prove he killed her. If there is another theory, it doesn't have to be more probable than something else. But any reasonable theory means you must find him not guilty. The defense called no witnesses. The case went to the jury, creating what the prosecutor described as perhaps the most difficult part of any trial, the moment when the jury walks into the back to go deliberate. The anxiety is through the roof. The reality that if they don't convict him, a killer is going to walk free. After just 2 hours, a remarkably short deliberation for a murder case, the jury returned.
Count 1, malice murder. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Count 2, felony murder. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Kidnapping. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Criminal attempt to commit rape. We, the jury, find the defendant not guilty. False report of a crime. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty.
Miles Bryant, once sworn to protect and serve, was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. I knew at that moment that we got him, recalled the lead prosecutor. We had done our job. No one's above the law, and he got what he deserved. The case exposed the chilling reality that monsters can hide behind badges, that someone who appeared very dutiful, very conscientious of his job, loved being a police officer, harbored a dark, predatory side. But justice for Susanna doesn't end with Bryant's conviction. Her family has filed a lawsuit against Sterling Glen Apartments, arguing they should have known about Bryant's past before hiring him as a courtesy officer, that Susanna's death might have been prevented. For the Morales family, the battle to honor their daughter's memory and prevent similar tragedies continues, ensuring that Susanna's story serves as both a warning and a call for greater vigilance against predators hiding in plain sight.